when I was born in a small town in northern Indiana, which at that time the population was less than 9,000. And at that time they didn't have public transportation and things like that. And my parents moved to Kokomo, and at that time they had public transportation, but they did away with it. The year my parents moved there, they stopped it. And as I went to the School for the Blind, and it was a residential school. I started there in 1969 and was there for 14 years. Of course, that was in the very beginning of when the education system, there was becoming more fair, appropriate public education, and a lot of school systems were starting to put the supports into place in the public school systems. However, the school system that I would have attended back in my own community never felt like they would have had an education system that would have given me all the supports I would have needed to get a quality education. And so they continued to be willing to pay for my parents to take me to Indianapolis, pay the transportation costs for my parents to take me to Indianapolis, and to the other costs that the school system would to the School for the Blind for me to go there. My experience was more of, it was hard, yes, it was hard in the beginning to be separated from my family. But it was harder on my siblings than it was on me, in that my brother couldn't understand why I had to go away to school. Once I got adjusted to being away and that, I hated going home on Friday, but I loved coming back on Sunday and that. And for 14 years I did that. I was very involved in leadership activities and sports and that throughout the years I was there. It was like having a second family. I today, and as I've grown in advocacy in that, if the opportunities to go to public school would have been there, yes, that's where I would have wanted to be, in my home community. But at the time I went to school there, that was the best option. I knew coming out of high school that I didn't want to be restricted into what I could do. And so I knew if I went back to Kokomo, there was no public transportation, there was no sidewalks, it was an automotive community and that. And what it showed me, just, that I had choices. I had a choice of living where I had to depend on other people to do things for me, to help me live my daily life, or to find a solution where I was going to be able to be as independent as I chose to and as interdependent as I chose to. And so when I started looking at colleges, yes, I could have went to IUK, Indiana University at Kokomo, for as many years as I would have wanted to get a degree. But in order to get that degree, I would have had to depend on family and friends for transportation. I wouldn't have necessarily had the opportunity to participate in extra activities as freely as I wanted. But by going to a community where there was public transportation and sidewalks and activities within walking distance, on campus and off-campus housing, on campus and off-campus eating establishments, I was able to live a more free life. And as we talk about livable communities, Muncie at that time was a livable community for me, where I didn't see living in Kokomo as being that for me. I can honestly say that I probably, it benefited me going to Ball State in that their disabled student services had a philosophy that was more of what my own personal philosophy was, and that was to be, and it goes right along with the independent living movement's philosophy, and that is that the person who is using the services needs to be in control of how their program goes. And that is how I got involved in the independent living movement. That's how I've continued to, I'm going to say, become more self-sufficient myself. If it wouldn't have been for becoming familiar with it when I was in high school, I probably would have thought the only place I had to go once I got out of high school was to remain at home and to work for a community rehab program in a sheltered workshop. I wouldn't have known about that there was community activities that I could engage in. And when I went to Ball State, like I said, the director there engaged the students going through the Disabled Student Services program to actually work with the university in making sure things were accessible, to get out in the community and become involved. And so I would say that that is how I got started.